What's up? Welcome to Common Mansplaining.
I can hear you. Everything's good.
So you can hear me, man. You're still.
I'm
my
still
phone
very
is
quiet.
being funny. Hold on. Say it again.
Am I not loud enough? I'll speak up.
No, you're good.
Okay.
You're good now. I think it was my phone
Good.
was set
Right.
to a smaller. Man, dude, I actually like my. Okay, so I went to a dentist today, and had an extremely painful engagement. And boy, I got home, I took some meds, and I passed out. I literally woke up like 8 minutes ago or something. Like perfect luck, to be just right on time. I was like, I woke up, I'm like, ooh, jumped out of bed and started setting everything up. That's crazy. But let's see here. Hopefully, I can get. I set up the title and the description. I have yet to put together some of the other stuff. But have you been?
Oh, busy, right? Big hailstorm out in Greensboro. Then my boss is insisting I go out there as well. So,
Right, of
at
course.
least this week. And it's just, it's beautiful weather to be outdoors. This is, I'm gonna stay for that.
Right.
So, I sent you a few topics. What do you think you're most interested in?
Yeah, so I was trying to narrow it down, and I was, started researching basically everything.
Yeah.
It's been a busy week. The first thing I was going to ask you was, what are your thoughts on so Trump's calling for the impeachment of Justice?
That can be very easily, there's processes that very easily overruled by another judge, right? So when a judge makes a bad ruling, which is what this is, it's overruled. If a judge is corrupt, if he's doing other things like that, then that's really when you talk about impeachment. So it's not a precise word. He would like faster judicial review, essentially, and would like essentially memos or guidance for what type of injunctions, meaning blockages, a district judge can do. So impeachment is not the proper terminology. I think it's semantics, but he would like somebody who's wildly overstepping their jurisdiction to be able to be called back in a very common sense kind of way. But yeah.
Right. Yeah. So I mean, obviously, right. There's there's a Supreme Court, and then there are courts that are under them, and courts that are under them, and courts that are under them, and then you got these like random judges in like BFE Alabama that are like, yeah, we're just going to put a hold to the entire thing, right? People that are able to extend their reach well beyond their own purview. Now, I heard that the Congress was considering putting into play as like a sort of law that kind of limited judges to their own domain, right? Like, so if some guy in East Texas has his district, and he wants to halt or start an injunction for then sure, it works for his district. It doesn't work for the entire world, but
yeah. Well, part of the thing is like, injunctions. Trump is trying to work at a pace, right? It's tempo, right? You understand tempo, and it's very easy for the swamp, the bureaucracy, to slow things down.
Of course,
and so that's what because there's a clock. He can only serve for 4 more years. There's finite amount of time that he can do things. So judicial review, it's a big strategy of the left. I've seen it in California for environmental reviews, things like that, to just slow down and run out the clock on politicians they don't like. So Trump had 4 years to prepare, and he wants to get stuff rolling. And he doesn't want now. Due process is a constitutional enough thing that there does need to be some room for review.
Sure.
And I think all of these reviews, when it comes down to it, Trump's going to win. I don't think he's on shaky ground, but so it feels like, because he's done his research, he has good lawyers this time. He knew he's planned doing this for a long time, and there's a lot of people tell him he's on solid legal footing. So it feels motivated by politics, right? He feels a little picked on.
Yeah, I mean,
he needs to step back a little bit.
Yeah, I'm wondering. I mean, so it's one thing to have judicial review, right? Like, I think this is what's bothering me about this whole situation. Obviously, we're supposed to have these co-equal branches, but there's a difference between judicial review of a law, right? Like, let's say Congress passes a law, and then someone files a brief with, a court and says this law is unconstitutional. Let's talk about it, right? There's a difference between that and a judge proactively coming out and like trying to legislate from the bench, which
Yeah,
seems to be what's going on. And my other biggest problem with that is this isn't an action by Congress. This is an executive order, right? So these executive orders are supposed to be one, temporary, because they don't have any kind of like that's the staying power that a law does. Two, fast acting, right? That's the entire point of an executive order. And I'm foreseeing all the dangers of this precedent. Like, for example, let's say we get into war and Trump is maybe he's just a little bit more aggressive with foreign policy than some others. Maybe he's less aggressive, but that's not the point. The point is, what if he takes an action that needs to be quick and decisive, and then all of a sudden this precedent stands in the way of that? Like, what if he says, "All right, look, I've ordered an expeditionary force to take this ground," and then judges are like, "No, we're going to keep you from doing that because we feel that there's some kind of legal issue."
well,
We can end up.
I don't think it would go so far as to storm a beachhead, right? But it
Well, I
might
hope
be like,
not.
hey, what? But if they say, hey, we want to move the strategic petroleum reserves that are used for civilian purposes now to military purposes or something like that. And a
Right.
judge would say, whoa, let's have some hearings, things like that. Um, now, because executive orders, legal ones, are supposed to be directed towards the executive branch, right? He's not telling Congress what to do. He's not writing the executive orders that are telling the judiciary what to do. And the president has broad constitutional powers for that. Now, my one concern in defense of the judges, or in defense of Trump's critique, is one of these judges that I saw was a former Democratic activist who's donated to Democrats for years and years and is definitely trying to stir the pot and be an activist. And so I think, we should be skeptical that guy is using sound legal theory and is trying to protect the best interest. I think he is motivated by trying to, show that his political side has some fight and trying to stymie, the outright winning of the Trump side. And
Right.
so that kind of weakens their position because in general, we as Americans should give, some due process as long as it's speedy. That's not too much to ask, but the credibility here is strained a little bit by some of these activist judges.
Yeah, obviously, and the other side of this coin is, I mean, I don't think the Democrats are really thinking this through. Like, do they really want this precedent to be set? I mean, what happens when their president's in play, and then the Republicans are like, "Oh, we didn't realize that all we had to do was start an injunction anytime the Democrats do anything on earth, and we can just halt the process and filibuster for years on end." This has got to be the dumbest thing I've ever seen, and in effect, it makes the judicial system like more powerful, makes them even more capable than the other branches if they can just start, like halting all of the other branches. I don't think that's what the intention is.
Here's the thing: is like that's a nuclear option, and you need to save that for something that a hill you're willing to die on, right?
Right.
Are they really willing to die on the hill of Trinidad de Agua being kicked out? Right.
Right.
Like this is who they're protecting. I mean, save that bullet. If you've got a nuclear option to stop everything, save it for something serious. Not the few hundred criminal organized crimes from Venezuelans.
Right.
Right. And I think that's the disproportional thing to be. All right. If the judicial process, if we need to come up with the works, this should be a last ditch resort. This is not just because the latest 200 thug criminals, are being shipped out of the country.
Right. Yeah, this is like Yeah, exactly. It's like right under Biden, it was illegal to like stop people from coming in, and here we are trying to get rid of like the worst people on earth at times, and it's like no, don't
And
do
it's not
that.
even that money. Yeah, and we're not. Yeah. Anyway, it's totally it's an irrational response. This is why we call it derangement syndrome.
Of course, yeah. Speaking of derangement syndrome, so Elon Musk brings people back from they're like they're on the space station and they're like there for like hundreds of days. He finally rescues them, and I kid you not, mainstream media is disappointed that Elon Musk did it. I'm like tuning to this, like I'm reading in the paper, and it's like, well, this was done. They're trying to like keep from mentioning his name and stuff like that. Like every little ounce of this, I'm like, are you kidding me? We're now disappointed that he's saving lives. It's like, you can't win. You can't win with these guys.
The only thing more disappointing would be if Tommy Robinson personally, flew up there and brought him down to earth like Superman or something. They'd be more embarrassed about it.
I mean, he literally is like Supermaning them down from the heavens, and it's been, Biden should have gotten them down. Like they've been up there forever.
Well, and meanwhile, he could have done it. Biden didn't want to give Elon a win.
Exactly,
right? Political win, and this is so. The mainstream media needs to get beyond that and say, look, I'm sorry that this makes somebody that good and this earns political capital for a side you don't like. It was a net good. We needed to get these people home safe. Why can't we be happy about people coming home safe?
Right. I mean, this should be basic state. Now, to be fair, I'll grant that the Republicans do this too. Like, there's always going to be some of this, like, we don't want to give the other party a win. I get that. There's going to be some gamesmanship. But, man, oh, man, let me ask you this. What do you think was the biggest story over the week? Because there's a lot. Like, there's a lot there this week. This is like a fast-moving week.
Well, for me, it was the Trinidad.
The Trinidad stuff, yeah.
The out of proportional rage of criminals who have no right to be here, just being removed. We're not shooting them. We're not dumping them in the ocean. They have their laws now. People were talking about the law that they invoked was the 1798 law.
Yeah, right.
But it was written by John Adams. Like this was not like some country bumpkin, right? This was a well-written law, and the reason it stayed on effect is because we still need it. It's a good power for the president to have.
Yeah, right? People forget that laws don't it's not like cheese where it ages. Like how old is the law against murder? 2,000 years ago, when somebody gets put behind bars because they murdered somebody, there's not a newspaper outlet saying, "Well, this is a 1000 BC law." Like that's unbelievable.
Yeah, absolutely,
unbelievable. Exile's as old as time, and it's one of those things where if your first act to come into the nation is to break the law and get here, then there has to be a stance against that, even if you've done nothing else. And we're talking about people that have done many, 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 many other bad things. Like some of these cats, like would come here, get arrested, get released, get arrested, get released, get arrested, get released, and it's like, what on earth are we doing? What on earth are we doing? And then we try to send them home, and it's like, wait. Oh man, it's like you can't even. I don't know. It's hard to even fathom where the logic comes from. And here's the one that I love hearing about. They're like, this is the tagline. It's like, if we get rid of all the illegals, who's gonna pick our crops? I'm like, who's gonna pick our crops? What are we back into like slave days? Yes, we know that you want to exploit them for cheap labor. Could you say it any clearer? Holy cow!
And these gangsters who are kidnappers, human traffickers, drug dealers, they're not picking nothing unless you're worried about you want farm to table fentanyl. Come on,
unbelievable.
So that was a big one to me, and the outrage of doing common sense border safety. This is just public order. This is what the government's job, the core responsibility.
Right.
The other one for me, and it's still an ongoing status, is I still don't get the hate for Elon Musk. Like, they're suspicious. On the one hand, they think that because he's wealthy, he's going to try to steal more money from the government for his personal enrichment. Like,
unbelievable.
And the reason why he's beyond corruption, because he has so much money, he's not motivated by money or getting money for him. Right?
Exactly. Exactly.
And this is, but he constantly, the left keeps throwing this at him, that we can't trust billionaires because they're just going to do greedy things for them to get a little bit more.
Because he might dig into my $38.17 bank account, and so it's just so he can buy nice things. Thank goodness. Poor guy.
And so now people are trying to personally attack any symbol of Elon Musk, right? Tesla dealership, that has gone out, right? And I feel like the consequences of that have to be stark, right? Teslas have cars on them, and I hope the judicial system will clamp down on people doing serious property damage to Teslas for no reason.
Right.
Not because the person did anything, but because for political harassment. That's got to be.
Yeah, it's insane. And it's like people seem to forget that. And this is a more general thing that they forget when they talk about, because the Democrats often hate rich people in general just because of the disproportionate wealth or whatever. And there's like a thing there where just wealth inequality in itself to them is evil. And I get that that's, if you're coming from that framework, it's difficult to be objective about this sort of thing. But also, like, they forget that there's not just one person running Tesla, right? Like, Elon Musk is not he's not even a majority owner. He owns like 20%, right? So like, they're affecting everyone else, all of the employees. Like, when you go throw a Molotov cocktail at somebody, you're affecting the people that built the car, the people that, manufactured the components, the people that shipped them, the people that, bought the vehicle, like, there's a whole fleet full of people that you're affecting, not just Elon Musk. And I mean, it drives me nuts. Does it even fathom? Does it even like break into their brain that they're not only attacking a single person? And even if they were, it would be bad. But all these other people.
Let me lay out this absurd scenario. Like, so these glasses were designed by Bulova, the Bulova brand glasses. So if the CEO of Bulova goes off and does something stupid and makes the news tomorrow, somebody can come and punch me in the face, or take my glasses off and throw them on the ground, and I just have to take it? Like, how is that appropriate? Right? Or I wear Nikes and Phil Knight goes and does something stupid. Now everybody who has Nikes is a target, right? This needs to be condemned on both sides. I want, if the Democrats are ever going to get any credibility as governors, they need to come out and tell everybody on the left to stop doing property damage to Teslas. That it's not connected. It's not making me want to trust the left, right? They're screaming babies, and this doesn't engender, these are wise people we want running the government.
Right, and you got right. Like, here's what drives me nuts. Like, every time a real conservative is asked, like, you'll have something like January 6th, which is going to be used as a propaganda thing for eons to come. But then every time someone's asked about it, like, you name it, they'll say, listen, political violence is never condoned, right? Like, it's always a bad thing to go out and start hurting people, and then they'll give their qualifiers, but it's like that's the very first thing they'll say. But when the Democrats are asked about it, they're like, how do you feel about this? Will you condemn that Trump had an assassination attempt or something? And they'll be like, it's like all of a sudden it's difficult for them to even say the words, no, political violence is bad. Like, Destiny was out there saying, this is a good thing and Corey Carpentore deserved it for being in the crowd of the Trump,
Right. Like that, it reminds me of the softball game. Do you remember the softball game? The congressional softball game. They were out practicing, and a guy comes by and shoots them all up. Guy almost died. A Republican congressman. You don't remember the story from a few years ago?
No, of course I was less politically aware back then.
Like in DC, so they have like a little softball league.
Oh wow!
Members of Congress, and some people found out where the Republicans were practicing and went and had a mass shooting there, right? All because they were Republicans, right? And nobody, and the left was really reluctant to call this out as inappropriate. They were like, well, you shouldn't have done any provocative things, or maybe you'll rethink your votes on such and such. Like, it was really like the most inexcusable kind of like, the guy's out playing softball and somebody just starts shooting at him with a rifle. And they're like, I don't know if I can condemn that. And so, yeah, that somebody just tried to attack a product in Peoria, Illinois that says Tesla on it, how for political reasons, needs to be condemned by everyone. We can't live in a society where that is allowed by either political party.
Yeah, that isn't even to mention the fact that, like, okay, if you throw a Molotov cocktail at one Tesla, you are not hurting that business. Like, never mind that. Like, we can sweep all the rest of this aside. This doesn't even accomplish what they want it to do. Like all of a sudden, people across the world aren't terrified that they're going to get a Molotov cocktail thrown at them. They're just like, this is just like stupid. It's like being a mosquito. You're going around biting people for no reason. And so, switching gears a little bit, I have another question for you. What are your thoughts on Pam Bondi and the way that she managed the Epstein file dump? And because I know that there's been some backlash on that, and people are a little bit upset at that. They seem to think that she should have already arrested 1 billion people. And
so as a common man, right? There's a lot in here a lot of credibility issues that I'm struggling with. Right, because the people on the Epstein list, right? Now, good journalists have had the Epstein list for a while, right? Rather than just picking it up and, here's the list, writing it down. If you followed all this stuff, you can get these names and report on it. If you're doing journalists, but they are elites. They're people with money, influence, with lawyers, with ways to protect themselves. They're not people that are easily intimidated. And so the prosecution of those types of individuals is not as cavalier as prosecution, right? Because if you're going to prosecute someone is to spend government resources, money, in a way, and you want to do it in a way where you think you can win.
Right.
And so we don't know what kind of case they're building or when they're ready to do this. You want to do it kind of when something's mature enough, because you have 96 hours of hearing. You can't hold people indefinitely in this country until you get your case together. So, so I can't pass for. I don't know what's going on behind the scenes. I have no advanced knowledge of that.
Right.
I know what we know has been disturbing enough that we have seen other people. Where common sense says that there should be some ramifications if Pam Bondi was taking it seriously.
Right.
At this point, I have to assume that there's lots of people looking at it who are telling her for legal reasons why not slow roll it. If we find out it's because of political reasons, I'd be disappointed. But it's got to be because of case making or they want other things. And I think possibly they talked about some of his files in New York have been suppressed by people in New York. I don't think Trump or Pam Bondi has everything that the Biden administration had.
True.
There's stuff that's incriminating to them, and maybe they're trying to track that down. So I'm a little bit at this point. I'm willing to be a little bit more patient as a common man, but with these caveats that I don't think it's acceptable if they have enough information and they're not proceeding for political reasons. But if there are adults in the room and they say, we just need a little bit more time so that when we make our case, it will stick.
Right.
And we can, I can be okay with that.
So, I want to give my take on this. But before I do, guys, I want to just say thanks for all of you who are out there watching. Thank you so much for watching. Definitely put some comments in the chat. While we're talking about chat for just a moment, in theory, Common Mansplaining now has the ability to accept super chats. I don't know if this is even true. I haven't tried to do this myself or or seeing if it's even possible. If someone wants to test that by sending us large quantities of money, they're welcome to do so, of course. One thing I think we can commit to is if anybody gives us a super chat, at least for now, we'll give your comment immediate attention, just because first, because we're testing the system out, but also to show our insane gratitude for doing something. The other thing too, I wanted to take a moment to do was to give a shout out to a dear friend of mine, Nina, who you guys probably remember from one of our videos. She was the one who debated Christian on the Israel-Palestinian conflict, and she recently was declared as having passed away. She ended up going missing off the tides of Thailand. So, and just take a brief moment to offer her our prayers and condolences. She was legit one of the nicest people I've ever met in my life. Dedicated her life to being a solution to the problems in the world rather than being one of the problems herself, and that's a rare thing in and of itself. So, but anyway, we love you, Nina. Sorry about what has transpired, and I hope that her friends and family get a chance to hear this. I'm gonna put her. She was a president of an NGO. I'm gonna put her NGO in the comment section of this after it gets published, and so if you guys want to donate to her, you'll know where to go.
There's anyway. I'm posting a link in chat. The news story about her disappearance.
Yeah, true tragedy. True tragedy. I don't know all the things that surrounded it or exactly how it went down, but yeah. But anyway, that's a true blow, and I felt terrible when I found out.
Friend of the station, and you got to be careful when we're in foreign countries. Don't take off your life vest. You see something down there. We don't know everything again, but I'm sure it was an accident.
Yeah, of course. So I can tell you, I've been. I mean, I'm an ex-Navy. I've spent a lot of time in the water, and I'm very, very confident in my swimming ability, at least when I'm in good shape. But even so, there's some dangerous riptides and currents out there. If you can get caught in some things and find yourself miles offshore without any clear sense of direction, and there's just nothing you can do except for float there until somebody finds you, and you're
Especially when you're unfamiliar. It's one thing if it's a place you go all the time, but you're on vacation. Things to be different. And
right.
But yeah, such a tragedy. What if we're so young? We'll recommend anyone to watch our conversation and on there. But
yeah. Truly a tragedy. But anyway, so yeah, my take on this this Pam Bondi situation. I'm kind of where you are. I mean, I do realize that there's a difference between the kind of quick assessment that we do here on this show and the kind of assessment that's necessary for a legal, constructed argument. Because there's, it's one thing for me to say, yes, Biden is corrupt, right? It's a whole nother level for me to convict him in a court, right? That's a whole nother game.
Misdemeanor. We want felonies to stick too. Right?
Right. It's easy to point the finger and say, this person probably did it. And usually, there's another level of burden of proof too. Because when I say it, we're talking about preponderance of evidence that we've seen, right? We're talking about, we can see this, we can kind of weigh all this stuff in the balance. But when you go into court, then of course it's evidence beyond a reasonable doubt. And that's a different level of evidence. And and I realize that she's probably got some stuff. Now, what bothers me a little bit is I feel like at least within her department, maybe some heads should have rolled. Maybe some people should have gotten fired. Because as far as correct me if I'm wrong, didn't she say release all the files and then found out that they weren't gonna that they started destroying them? Now, obviously, that comes with its own burden of proof. You have to figure out exactly who's destroying them and if it actually happened and prove that too. But I'd definitely fire somebody for if I tell somebody, if I'm the head of a department and I say I need these files and then they destroy them, I'm firing that person.
Yeah, and I think that's right. That's obstruction of justice.
Yeah,
not just losing your job, but there should be consequences. And You know, and I think that's right. That's the credibility issues. Like if justice is being obstructed, then those people need to be held accountable.
All
Right?
right.
And so it feels like they're concealing and trying to, you know, we'll see. But there is, if they're going to win back the common people's credibility, they're going to need to move on this in a way that that has the full transparency, because that's been Trump's big thing, is we want to be very transparent, let people see what's going on, and when you start cloaking and going into hiding things for more than strategic reasons, but for CYA reasons,
Right.
then all of a sudden you're going to start losing support of the common people.
Right. Yeah. Speaking of, well, yeah, I hope that going forward, I hope this is maybe a lesson to her. Like this is the maybe a pace that she has to set for herself within the department, like to guard against this sort of thing. Because I think Trump learned that lesson in his first term, right? He knows how to manage corruption now. He knows how to manage people that are working against you within your own department. And so he's attacked the second term with a whole completely different like level of oomph and force and like, sheer willpower. And, he's definitely come in and set a new pace. So I'm hoping Pam Bondi sees this and says, okay, the next time I want files, it can't be like, hey, can you send me these files? It's got to be like roll up there with the hit squad and like, start kicking butt and taking names.
You wonder if there are people like, well, she's a Trump appointee, maybe we can slow walk this kind of stuff. So, and then, so hopefully if she gets more, let's say, in the saddle, that helps as well. But it's not out of the realm of possibility if he finds that she's not up to keeping that Justice Department in line. Maybe she needs to be relieved, shall we say?
Yeah.
Relief, right? She can still be a deputy person, but maybe have a new AG.
Right? Yeah. Trump has never shied away from moving people out of their positions to get the right person into the job.
Yeah. So that's open, but I think it's a little too soon. We're not even in our first 100 days for that. But we'll keep a tab on it. See, now the Department of Education, that's something we've talked about on this channel over a while. He made some more progress in moving forward with the Department of Education.
Yep. Got rid of about half of them, right?
So I think that's another one of those. I think that issue gets spun, and common people need to think it's like Black Lives Matter. Like the phrase, like, oh yeah, Black Lives Matter, but you got to separate that from the organization. You're like, yeah, but the organization is complete garbage, right? So yeah, I agree with the statement, right? And it's like, oh yeah, we care about education. Obviously, in this country, it's one of our values in the West. We want to be educated. We want our kids to be educated. We want our schools to be good. Like,
of course,
it's common sense, right? But this Department of Education is not being in those schools. It is a classic bureaucracy that wants to inflate its budgets and keep its job, and that is it.
Yeah. Right, like people have heard me say this a million times. You go to the Article 1, Section 8 of the United States Constitution, you see if education is on that list, you find out that it isn't, and then you go over to the 10th Amendment, and you look at the 10th Amendment, you read it carefully, and you realize that the entire Department of Education is not supposed to be federally run. Now, that having been said, there are obviously some things that they do that were at least conceived as positive things, right? Like, for example, one of the weaknesses that the left is quick to point out in our educational system in general is that there's variance in funding, right? Some school systems are very well funded because they're in ritzy areas and have a lot of revenue from local property taxes. Some of them are not. And that's going to be the case. Now, contrary to what they usually say, there isn't this magical line where, like, if you're in a poor area, you have poor school funding. That's not actually accurate. I've done some digging into that. It's really more like almost luck of the draw. You could be in a poor area but still have high property taxes. You could also likewise be in a very high income area and just not have as much funding. But that having been said,
it's the skill of your school board and your local administrators makes probably, and their honesty and being above corruption probably helps.
That's exactly what I was going to say. Like, I think the biggest influence in probably a lot of things, like not just not just education, but like most of the government, the way the government's run, even the presidency. I've being a manager for most of my life, being a business manager, I've had a new respect for management ability in general. Like you'll find like me more than most people will probably assign some extra like priority to just a person's general leadership ability, the general management ability as a president. Hey Scott, how's it going? And so like I would even maybe vote for somebody who has a good management capability over necessarily someone who's perfectly aligned to me ideologically, just because I know their implementation is going to be very, very solid. Like if you take two different presidents, for example, this is one that I bring up a lot. Two presidents that I actually admired with their economic implementation, and one was Reagan and one was Clinton, and they're almost ideologically polar opposites. But because they were both very, very strong managers, but even though they had different ways of doing things, they were able to.
They were politically gifted.
Sure. Right. Right. They were both very, very intelligent and had very good support staff, and they were very good management. So they were able to execute. And that's going to be the case at most school boards, right? A lot of school boards, like if you have gifted people there, then you're going to have people who are able to manage the resources well. They're able to like make them stretch as far as they can go. You're going to have people that are going to hire good staff. That's just how it is. And conversely, if they're not good, they're going to suck basically no matter how much money you throw at them. Now, I was going to ask you, do you think that there's like a lower end, like where like there's a bare minimum threshold for the kind of funding you need for an educational system to be?
So here's the thing. Have you ever heard of the idea of lurking variables?
Yes, but right? hit us with it for the audience.
Okay. So when you ask questions, right, like there's a statistical term called correlation is not causation, right? Yes. And so money and good test scores or good education are correlated, but they're not necessarily the cause in there. But is there lurking variables? There are other things that the questions aren't addressing that lead to good outcomes in education, right? That's what we want. We're looking at the results of education. People have and there are a lot of social, two parents in the household. Make more difference than how new the bus is the kids ride to school, right? The how safe a home for that children to do their homework might be more important than is the school architecturally interesting and good at heat retention, right? And so like the schools here in North Carolina, they knock them down every so often. They rebuild their palaces, but then there are teachers that are focused on learning, and teachers that are focused on checks or whatever. Like there's different things, and with a union, it's really hard to get rid of bad teachers. But just like in any job, there are people that are good at their job and people that are, shall we say, less good. I feel like when we're rating education, especially at a national level, there are too many things on a national level that are concealing it. Right? It really needs to be drilled down to the state and really to the county level. This is why we have county school boards. They need to know, right? Okay, this is what's struggling in our area. Like, in Montana, they probably don't need a big English as a second language program like they do in Miami, or in and you might not have such a big agriculture or farming education thing in New York City as you might in Kansas or Nebraska, right? Things like that.
Absolutely.
And so different emphasis, and those are completely appropriate.
Absolutely.
We also don't train our kids classically anymore. Classical thought. That's what private schools do now. Like if you want a classic education where you really train to think, you learn Latin, you learn some languages, you think. So much of the stuff now is driven towards test scores, and it's really to kind of make workers, right? Somebody who can work in a gas station or things like that. rather than be good thinkers. And
Right.
and so even at my school, I went to public school. I did not go to private school. You as well, Eddie.
Me too. Yeah. Yeah. Of course.
Public school and elementary, middle school, and high school. If you cared, you could get a good education.
Oh yeah.
But you had to make sure you were finding out, okay, where are the good classes, who are the good teachers, and
where
you
the
need
gap.
to be prepared to maybe switch schools every once in a while. Like,
oh
okay,
yeah.
this teacher is not, for this grade, and my mom would do that, right? And I would do that and make sure we got on the track so that you could get a top tier education. But if you just kind of, all right, here's the classes I've been assigned, kind of go with the flow, you can end up with an education that we would say is less robust.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I went to. I remember I went to Southern High School and went through my the Durham public school system, which far and away was a very poor school system, right? Like if you were to like read the like rating, from some kind of national list or even international list, we performed very, very poor on test scores, especially the schools that I went to were kind of in lower income zones. So we just didn't have great, but you were right. There were definitely gems of teachers in there somewhere. And they did this kind of thing where they kind of like the cream rose to the top, right? So the better teachers ended up teaching like the academically gifted classes and stuff like that. So it was kind of a force multiplier in a way. So it was kind of like if you weren't a good like a high level, high quality, high caliber student, you were going to get the kind of lower end education anyway. You were going to get the bare minimum maybe to hit that test score zone. But if you were at the top end, you were going to get the teachers that challenged you and really drove you to think more. And so it's kind of an interesting way of stretching the spectrum. I don't know if it was, even to this day, I don't know if that's good or bad or, indifferent. Ultimately, most of the from my education came from my parents, because I would go home. I was not the kind of person where you could go home and not do homework. I just wasn't. My parents were like, get out your homework, show it to me. And, like you couldn't get away with, oh, I've done it all. It's like, they're going to look it over. They're going to make sure you did it right. They're going to challenge you to do more. I'm like, Mom, these questions weren't assigned on the homework thing. I don't care. I want to see that you can do it. It's like boom, boom, boom. And so of course, that's the kind of, that's the kind of support at home that, of course, we love to have everywhere. You're not going to get fortunate enough to have that everywhere. But the other thing I wonder, though, is like the good teachers, they were so powerful in a child's life if they were really, really good. I wonder if there's a way where we can get the states to just raise the bar as far as what they look for, how much they pay, things like that, to really encourage because the difference between paying a teacher like $30,000 a year, $40,000 a year, and $60,000 a year might be the difference in finding really, really good teaching staff and and really poor I don't know. I don't know what the magic number is. I don't know if there's
but the Department of Education at the federal level, the problem is, and this is why I agree with the point you're making about education, about schools, about good teachers. But the Department of Education, when you're on a macro level, it starts to just be about scores, right? About statistics. Right. And what happens is the lower end, the people who are academically uninterested, right? They just want to know enough to get by. They sort of bring down the overall level. So just so you know, so my high school, I was in Los Angeles, Whittier High. My freshman class was like 700 and just under 750 students. Just over 250 graduated on time. Another 100 graduated that summer, right? Just needed one extra class to repeat that summer. So about 350 graduated in 4 years, right, with a summer class. That's still a 50% attrition rate, more than 50% attrition rate. And
sounds like mine.
And these students are just choosing to drop out, right? They turn 18, but then that looks like my school at the time had the most, for a public school system, was the most rigorous in the state of California, right? We were the only one in the state of California that required 3 years of math and 4 years of English, right? Things like that. Anyway, so kids would just drop out. And the Department of Education is freaking out about this. But we have to know, it is our value as Americans. People have freedom, right? And that means they do have the freedom to not value education as highly as me and you do, right? And,
indeed.
Right. So the Department of Education, was after, hey, we want to help out. What it's become in the 50 years since it was formed is now it just wants to keep their jobs. Every job in the Department of Education was $150,000 a year job in D.C.
Right.
And have nothing to do with meeting or taking care of children, right? Very cushy kind of maybe read some articles or things like that. Very ivory tower stuff, not helping. Maybe Pell Grants and GI Bill, those could be handled by other departments. So
yeah, absolutely.
While I don't think doing away with the Department of Education does not mean that we don't want our education to improve in America. It just means a federal department is not solving the problem and is not needed.
Now, what do you think about? Okay, so now here's the devil's advocate response, right? We obviously we want essentially for the education system to be run by the states. You and I do, but there is a layer to which, how do I say this? A standard is a good thing to an extent, right? Like don't get me wrong, because I want Alabama to do their own thing. I want North Carolina to do their own thing. I want New York to do their own thing. But I also don't want to go from North Carolina to South Carolina and then all of a sudden find out that the effective educational IQ has dropped 35 points. I want South Carolina also to still have, at least the fact that they, can do their reading, writing, arithmetic. I still want them to be there somewhere. And so it's not that I expect them to have read all of the Shakespearean sonnets and to read all the classics and to know everything and to be like a calculus, A-B student. But I do kind of want them to have had, geometry, algebra.
Well, this is so when they part of the Department of Education, not every state had a Department of Education. Well, not every state had these standards. These states now do. We've grown up. Every state government is a lot more mature than it was in the late 70s, especially in the South or underserved areas. And there's been a lot of reporting on that. So essentially what I'm with Trump is, let's see what happens. Let's cut this program back. If we absolutely need it, we can restart it again, right? We're not saying throwing it in Mount Doom. I mean, we're ending the program. If they can justify their existence in 4 years, they can start back up, as a small one and have targeted goals. See, I think, targeted goals, but for this administration, it's a little bit like, hey, they said, what's going to happen when we cut back on illegal immigration? No. Well, we're saying, let's find out. Let's try it. See what happens when we have a little bit less illegal immigration.
I'm down with that.
Let's find out if we don't have a Department of Education, if the states can step up. And
I'm with you.
And then really, ultimately, and I think that the federal government has to run things that they're responsible for. And this is a good. It doesn't mean education isn't important, but it's not something that the president needs to be concerned about.
Yeah, I'm with you. Now, let me ask you one last, float a quick idea at you. Because one thing I think that we've lost in our education system altogether in America is we've kind of gotten to this point where we have over dramatized how important college is. We try to shuffle everyone into college and try to shut them in there, force them as hard as we can. After high school, you got to go to college and da-da-da-da. And it's almost like if you don't go to college, you're not important anymore, right? Or they try to make you feel like you're lesser. Now, I wonder if there's a place somewhere around 10th grade or maybe even 9th grade, 10th grade, where people that aren't going to college and we're never going to go to college should maybe be siphoned off into this, okay, you're not going to college. it's obvious that you're not good. I mean, no offense, but your IQ isn't 150, right? Why don't we get you a masonry apprenticeship or a welding apprenticeship or like kind of shut them off into this secondary.
Farmers in America. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, how do you feel about that?
In California, we did that, right?
Yeah.
They'd have there are alternative schools, and you can go into type of now. See, different schools have different strengths, right? So in my school district, right? Yeah, my I took auto shop one year, and it was a complete joke. It was but some of the other schools in the district, which you can transfer to, their auto shop, their on campus auto shop was like a dealership, right?
Nice.
With all the computer systems, and you could just get really good, like how I did basketball and band all 4 years. Like you can be a guy who's like all 4 years you're in the auto shop and you're fixing up cars and you're doing right, and it was like a club kind of thing. And there were other locations. My son went to a school in California that had an engineering group that would build these robots that would battle, do competition, different stuff, software engineering, different things like that. So there is sort of that. I think why college is used as a goal so much because they struggle to motivate children to what's the point, right? They feel like if they say your goal is college, then at least you'll try to learn to read or you'll be more interested in high school, more engaged, because it's really hard sometimes on the day-to-day. You feel like you're just daycare, or you're weighed down by the drama of your friends, or you care about other things. And academics just feels like something you go through. They're trying to give them a goal in mind. Hey, you have this goal, and helping that drive or improves high school performance. I think really the number of people, and there's a lot of community colleges and stuff. They want people enrolled in those. They want those jobs, but I feel like it's a goal to encourage.
Yeah. That makes sense.
But ultimately, because once people are adults, you have to respect them. Maybe they go to community college, they go to 1 year college. That number of people really drops because then they find out really soon. Oh, I'd much rather be doing this than learning about political science theory, reading about child development, writing papers on.
I remember,
right? And
I'll never forget the days I started in computer programming. I'll never forget the day I'm like sitting there staring at these just lines of code for like 37 hours straight, and I'm like, what the heck am I doing? But anyway,
people don't self-sort. But you want them to at least get to that point, ideally as an educator, to get to that point where they're choosing for themselves to change, and not that they're forced that they don't have any option.
I'd like that to happen maybe earlier than college, but I don't know. Maybe I don't know. Anyway, we can kick that around a little bit more as the common man. Let me ask you this. So this is another thing that's happened over the week. Autopenning. So Trump has declared the Biden pardons, the 1,385,916.5 pardons that Biden has done, as null and void because they were auto-penned. And it's funny. I have to say that I didn't even realize that presidents were auto-penning. I mean, don't get me wrong. Like I considered the possibility that they might have like a stamp but I assumed that the president was using it, right? Like I assumed that the president was saving his hand cramp and going boom, 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 right? That's different
he's the one pressing, please sign this, right? Yeah.
Right. At least that's in the back of my mind. That's what I was thinking. I did not realize that apparently because Biden was dead and hooked up to a car battery, the whole time, that he was like delegating this out to some other guy who, and Biden may not have even been in the loop. Now, I want to believe that maybe he's the first president to do that, but I don't know. So, and one thing I wanted to ask you is, apparently there's kind of like this legal precedent that it's okay to auto pen. Why did we even start that? And then where do we draw the line as far as how automated this system is? Like, if the president's not even knowledgeable of the bill, how does that count?
Right. So, if you've never had a job, I was student body president of my high school.
Okay.
Right? And it was a very old high school, right, built in the 1900s. So they just had this old thing that any group on campus spent any money for anything legitimate, the principal and the student body president had to sign a thing for it.
Okay.
So we'd get done with our student council 10-minute session, and everybody else would go off and I'd get Christian, let's have you. And I just had to sit there. I couldn't stamp, and I had to sign every single one of them. And I always had one of them been nice, right? Just like I had no review. I wasn't like I could say, you know what? I don't think the girls' volleyball team should be going to this. I'm not going to authorize the bus. I had no review power. All I could do was sign them, right?
Huh.
So that's sort of what Autopen is for. Is when there's sort of a process step. Such and such has to do with something. You have an Autopen kind of thing.
You couldn't just not sign one and then stall it that way.
No, it was.
What would happen? What would happen if you?
They wouldn't get their money. If I didn't sign something, then they couldn't appropriate the money.
So you did sort of have review, but just what would have happened to you had you let's say you really put your foot down and you're like, I'm not signing this. This is ridiculous.
Yeah. Well, we would have gone in with the principal, and they would have had, and I would have had to make my case and stuff. But all of them, they were like $67 for buses to bus the basketball team across the county, right? I mean, it was I'm not talking $1,000 appropriations even.
Right, lots of garbage.
We want some new pom-poms for the decorations for the party. Sign. Anyway, so there's so much stuff in the bureaucracy of our size.
Okay.
There's certain things they want to have the president's signatures on it that Autopen makes sense. Now, right, it's the common man. This is common sense, people. There are certain levels of importance that, right, like executive orders,
we see pardons for criminals.
Yeah, they're really big things. Public, we want to see the president sign that. This is not some obscure apportionment of something that's been approved, right? That like money that's already been approved by a law, and it's oh yeah, this is just showing that I'm complying with the law by sending this appropriation, whatever. Autopen that shows, but these things, because it implies a high level of scrutiny and review, just common sense makes any executive order that you want to have law, a pardon, right, is you created a new law. This person cannot be prosecuted for such and such. And each case should be, So an Autopen there does seem...
Well, so it seems that way, but
abusable. Let's say it's abusable. That somebody could incorrectly when the standard for Autopen becomes too loose.
Now obviously we have these two this dichotomy, but there's two things, right? There's the legal and then there's the ethical, the moral, right? So we've got a situation where they should not Autopen, but they also legally aren't required to not Autopen. So obviously Biden was kind of like a yes man puppet anyway. So it didn't surprise me that he Autopen stuff. It's not like I was like, what, Biden wasn't kept in the loop? Really? I'm like, duh. To me, I'm like, okay. And even if he had known and seen every single one, he'd have been like, can somebody get my glasses? Of course he's gonna do it no matter what, and not have a clue what's going on. So it's not like.
But our institutions are too powerful and too. For that type of abusive system to be in place. And so, I would even like to see a little thing underneath signed by Autopen or something when there's a signature, just to clarify that. And then so somebody could be like, okay, and have it where the president signs it by Autopen, not his chief of staff, not his vice president, not his wife, not his nursemaid, not his secretary, right?
Not his mistress.
He personally pushes the button to sign an Autopen. Well, what about at least acknowledges his consent?
What about maybe we should have, I mean, I know we don't right now, but maybe we should have like tiers of executive orders. Like this is a tier 1 executive order, must see president's eyes only.
That's
like
true.
But I don't know. But either way, but does Trump? I mean, can Trump really actually declare these null and void just because they should? Just because they should be null and void doesn't mean they're actually legally null and void. Of course,
there's due process, so you'd have to have a void, right? The Constitution, unfortunately, gives a lot of leeway, and so if we're no laws could bring that in and clarify something. It's just been Congress has been kind of uninterested in restricting the pardoning power. They care about other things that their constituents care about. And pardoning is usually something done at the end of an administration, is usually not a big deal. Biden has made it a big deal, and now Trump has made it a big deal, and the press has wanted to blow it up because it's been abused. And that's when laws come in, you're like, okay, let's rein this in a little bit. Historically, it has not been abused, hasn't been a problem. So it's kind of been, ain't broke, don't fix it. But now we're getting to a point where they might want to fix it. I would imagine if they do, it'll happen at the end of Trump's presidency.
So I will say this, and this is, you guys know, for those of you out there, you know that I'm not always on the same page as Trump. I mean, some things I am, and I've liked a lot of what he's done this second term, and at least the speed at which he's doing it, and the sheer force and willpower that he's put into it. One thing I don't like about Trump is that I feel like for a lot of these, Trump puts himself in a situation where he does something essentially that's like crosses the line so that it'll be adjudicated. I'd rather he put it through the process to have it adjudicated, right? Like just like most other legal items, like I'd rather his legal team present a brief to SCOTUS or something like that and go, like, for example, birthright citizenship. I know we keep bringing this stupid one up, but like, instead of him saying this no longer exists via executive fiat, I'd rather him say, yeah, this doesn't seem like what it was originally designed for. Here's a brief. And let's go through the process. Let's have SCOTUS hear it, rather than wham and like, oh, have the reaction to his force be what, like, that's just my personal, like, I don't know how y'all feel out there in the audience, like, but I just feel like the best way to.
Common sense. Well, he pushes boundaries. He's like a cow looking for a part of the fence that's not electrified. But, the media is going to hold him accountable, right? And I think that's the big thing. And so they're not going to let things slide. They're doing their best to try to report on everything. But it is concerning how much, right? The Autopenning is just, again, and the lack of reporting on it is just, again, a sign of how much the left was okay with the president's faculties being reduced, and the leadership was just given over to the bureaucracy, right?
Yeah.
And that type of changes from just let the bureaucracy run and it'll be fine to let's drain the swamp.
Yeah.
Is what I signed up for, and common sense says, and let's see where it goes. Let's see what.
Absolutely. Yeah. I just can't say this enough. It's like, obviously that was their plan all along, right? Is to have, and people ask me, well, if you weren't crazy about Trump, how can you still vote for him? I'm like, because of that right there, because that terrifies me, because having this unnamed engine that's behind the scenes, that's insidious, and I can't see it and I can't track it and I didn't vote for it and I have no clue who they are. That's terrifying. Right? Yeah. That is everything against what we stand for in America. Yeah. It is literally the antithesis. So, so there you have it. Now, what do you, are there any other items this week that like really caught your eye, or anything else on your plate?
Well, your radar? I mean, obviously the Kennedy stuff will be interesting. I don't think we should talk about it yet.
No, yeah.
And,
it's too much to go through. Like, it's like 10,000 pages. Like, I don't know. I'm sure they have like AIs sniffing through it, and people like, all the JFK conspiracy hunters like going through it page by page with the. But yeah.
Oliver Stone, zombie Oliver Stone needs to go back through it. I mean, I think just disclosure is good.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
other issues that I'm also following are international issues. Um,
Yeah.
the
Bombing
Ukraine
the
and Putin
Houthis.
is not going exactly well. England and Europe. So we'll see. And Canada is sort of doubling down on them being petulant towards Trump, towards the United
Yeah.
States. So we'll see where that goes. For the most part, I think where Oregon is like, all right, so we won't be quite as cozy with Canada. Let's see what happens. Let's give
Oh
it a shot
no.
for a little while. You know,
I'm so afraid.
maybe it won't bother me, but we're kind of like, it seems rude. So the Germans have this word. It kind of means, yes, you're correct, but you're still being an a-hole, right? There's a literal word for it. It's like you're correct, but you're being an a-hole about it.
What's the word?
I'll look it up.
Oh, that's fine. That's fine. I thought you had. Anyway, but yeah.
But I've seen. I have a friend. Anyway, and that's a little bit like. So Trump is right about things, but people don't. They don't like that he's an a-hole about it.
Sure. That's fair.
They're going to need to get over that and just accept when he's right, he's right. I'm feeling disrespected and uncomfortable about it, but the United States, it's too important for us. We've got to kind of accept this is how it is. And he's a disruptor. And part of that is you're going to step on people's toes and stuff, but it's more important to be right than, to be obsequious. So.
Yeah, I will say I have a special place in my heart for people that were right, that were assholes, because I was just basically always that person growing up, being autistic and having little Asperger's going on. So yeah, but anyway, yeah. So for those of you guys out there that are watching, if you do have something that you want to see us cover, put it in the comments, and we'll definitely take a look. That we'll hunt some of these foreign policy issues over the course of the week. And thank you so much for watching, guys. Check out Nina's NGO. I'll post it in the thing. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah. I got the word. It's called. I'll post it in the chat. That's
okay. Fair enough. All right. Yeah. Thank you guys so much for watching, and we'll catch you next time on Common Mansplaining.
Keep it coming.